Greetings, everyone. This is Chip Moore. On behalf of the LA and Orange County Audio Society. We welcome you to today's Zoom meeting with John Grado, a person of great renown in our business. I'd like to let you know that our normal procedure is to let John talk to us as long as he'd like to, but we would get to about 2 o'clock our time and take a 5-minute break. And then we will get back to a question and answer mode. If you think of questions along the way, please put them in the chat and we will manage that during the question and answer period. In the meantime, at this point, let me introduce Mike Wechsberg, who will introduce our speaker. Mike, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Chip. And I just want to start by sending appreciation out to Chip for all his work in getting these meetings going and working properly. And it's not as easy as the app people think it is. And I really appreciate everything he does for us. Welcome, everyone. So happy that you joined us today. We may get some more people in. We're starting an hour earlier than we usually do to accommodate John, our guest schedule. And we've been trying to juggle a lot of events here towards the end of the year and make everything work and give our folks the best possible experience. So I appreciate you coming in for the call today. And our speaker is John Grado, as you know, and he's one of the leads a company that's one of the legends in audio. So many of the companies that started the audiophile craze in the 50s, 60s, and so on, they've changed ownership, but Grado has stayed in the same family for all these years, and I'm sure John will mention that it's pushing 75 years now, I think, and that continuity is really impressive and has led to some really outstanding products that I know many of you out there have used. I certainly have over the years. So, plus John, as you may recall, is a former recipient of one of the Society's Founders Awards just a few years ago. And he joined a really august group there, and we're continuing that tradition. I look forward to a really entertaining afternoon here today. It's a gloomy Saturday here in California. Many of you are in California, but we're going to cheer things up by hearing from John Grado. So let me finish up and just turn it over to John.
Okay, well, thank you for having me. Thank you for accommodating me. I'd just like to mention the accommodation was I wake up at 3:30 every morning, no alarm clock. I just wake up. So by later afternoon, I might be ready for a little nap to get going in into my evening. Mike kind of mentioned the longevity of our company. Actually, we'll be going into our 73rd year. So I just like to run you through kind of the history where we came from. 1918, Grandpa bought the building that we located in. He had a fruit store here till 1952, closed the fruit store. Joe Grado is my uncle. Joe, his 4 brothers, his sister, his mom and dad, one of his brothers, my father, They all lived actually on this floor that we're located in, third floor. They lived here, grew up here. Joe, the family was kind of musical. Joe and my father were both singers. And Joe kind of took it a little further than my dad. Joe's brother, my uncle, was a clarinetist for the U.S. Army Air Force Band for 25 years, traveled the world. My grandfather played the ukulele in a local group of his paisans who came over with him from Sicily, and they all opened fruit stores in Brooklyn. Joe was a trained watchmaker. Back in the 40s, there were two master watchmakers in the country, Joe and the gentleman, John Chappis. John Chappis actually came in and started working with us in 1958. Joe was whatever an audiophile was in the late 40s, 1940s. And there was a local hi-fi store here in Manhattan called Leonard Radio. At Leonard Radio in the late 40s, 1940s, he met the acquaintance of Saul Morantz. This was before Saul started the Morantz Company, but they were both enthusiastic about the audio world. Saul started working, getting the company going very late 40s, early 50s. And Saul was an acquaintance of Sherman Fairchild. Sherman owned Fairchild Industries, conglomerate. They built everything. And for World War II, they built all the tanks, all the planes. It was probably one of the biggest conglomerates in the country. Sherman was also an audio enthusiast, and in this massive company, he had a little division that made phono cartridges. And fortunately for us, he was having a very high, I think it was 50 or 60% reject rate. Sherman talked to Saul, and Saul decided to introduce Joe Grado to Sherman Fairchild. They met, they talked, and Joe agreed to take over Sherman's production of phono cartridges. Now, Joe's ability, watchmakers can take a block of brass and turn it into a little flywheel. Joe went in, revamped the whole phono cartridge division, got it going very successfully, and Joe came up with his own idea of a phono cartridge design. He left Fairchild Industries, and he started making phonograph cartridges on his kitchen table. Now, during the 40s, after the war, after Joe and my father came back from the war, they bought a two-family house around the corner from where we're located now. And Joe and his family lived upstairs, and my dad and our family lived downstairs. And Joe was making phonograph cartridges upstairs on his kitchen table, making a few cartridges, going out to Leonard Radio and a couple other local hi-fi stores and selling them and making them and selling them. During this period, I was born in 1953. So as a toddler, the law of my mother's law was we could only have 3 Oreo cookies at a time. So of course, me being a little wise guy, I'd eat the 3 Oreo cookies downstairs, and then I'd go upstairs, and my aunt and uncle didn't buy Oreo cookies. They bought a cookie called Hydrox. And I don't know if anybody's familiar with Hydrox cookies, but actually Hydrox cookies, that's the cookie that Oreo stole the idea from and created the Oreo cookie. So I'd go upstairs and have as many Hydrox cookies as I wanted sitting under the kitchen table as Joe made his phono cartridges. And that was kind of the beginning of the relationship between Joe and I. Joe has a daughter. He has no sons. So we kind of bonded at a very young age. Joe continued to make phono cartridges. And in 1958, Grado Labs was started in 1953 as an official company. In 1958, he moved the business around to the place where my grandfather had his fruit store. And in 1958, the business was also incorporated. In 1958, also the other master watchmaker in the country, John Chappis, came in and worked with my uncle. So they made phono cartridges, and over the next few years, they started producing speakers, turntables, phonoms that was sold separately, and they were fairly successful at that. And that lasted till about 1963. And in 1963 or around there, you have to forgive me for exact dates, but the turntable changer came into effect. Before that, all the turntables were, manual single play turntables. So it was a change a table was something that I don't know if we couldn't or he wasn't interested in producing. So 63, 64, he decided stop production of everything and just produce phono cartridges. Now the phono cartridge, of course, when he first started making them, it was a monaural phono cartridge. And in I believe it was 59 or 60, he actually developed the first moving coil stereo phono cartridge, had a patent on it, and we produced moving coils for 2 or 3 years. I believe it was in 63 he discontinued production. And with the advent of the change, turntable sales and record sales and phono cartridge really were taking off. So he decided just make phono cartridges, made phono cartridges. Then on July 3rd, 1965, that started my career here at Grado Labs. And a little funny story, I was a 12-year-old kid. So they brought me in, to sweep the floors and clean up and give me piecework. So they put me to work on piecework. Now, for anybody who doesn't remember, back here in New York in 1965, minimum wage was $1.25 an hour. So if you worked 8 hours a day, I worked 8 hours a day, you'd make $10. So they put me on piecework, figuring that I wasn't worth minimum wage. And they gave me these. We used to make phono cartridges for Dual, the turntables that they would mount on the tables. And there was this little piece of plastic that we had to trim to protect the phono cartridge. So they put me to work on that. I got a penny for each one I cut. And that first day, I cut 700. 700, a penny a piece. I made $7. That was fine. The next day, the next working day, I happened, I got a little practice. I happened to cut 7,000. So that was in one day, I made $70, which was, most people who were working for them full time didn't make that much in a week. So there were 2 uncles, my Uncle Joe and my Uncle John. My Uncle John kind of ran the operation. So my Uncle John didn't want to pay me the $70. But I talked to Uncle Joe, and a deal is a deal. So they paid me the $70. But after that, they paid me $1.25 an hour. So, but that was the beginning of my career here. And again, the evolution of the phono cartridge. After the moving coils, we went into making some ceramic cartridges for a number of years. And then I believe it was 67, we started making the magnetics, and that was the beginning of the F series, some might remember. We made the F series through the later 1970s. In 1971, I graduated high school. I went to a high school named Brooklyn Tech. It was a technical school, and I'm glad I went there. They had all types of courses. My uncle convinced my parents not to, well, not that he convinced my parents to let me not go to college. We were going to start a speaker company, get back into speakers. And one of the things I enjoyed about this was there was a gentleman, Sid Smith. Sid Smith was one of the chief design people from the Marantz Company. And Sid and I kind of worked on speaker designs. And one of the things I was kind of proud of, we actually built an anechoic chamber that was 12 feet by 25 feet, 10 feet tall. And again, this is all an education to me. You know, I'm kind of, I tell people, a lot of people got into this business because of their strong desire to be in the audio world. When I came to work for my uncle, my strong desire was not technically to be in this audio world, but was to make a few bucks so I could take my older girlfriend, I was 12, she was 14, older girlfriend to the movies. And, we sit in the back. What else would a 12-year-old boy want? So again, working with Sid, I learned an awful lot. A lot of building of cabinets and, all trial and error. You have ideas and you try them and you try them. And I built an awful lot of speaker cabinets. This experiment kind of lasted about a year. And then, to no fault of my uncle, I was an 18-year-old, kind of wild guy. So we decided to put off the speaker company. I went back to college. I still worked part-time. And basically the thought then was that I would go and get in a law degree. When I finished my bachelor, 1975, again, discussions with my uncle. He wanted me to come back in full time. I did, basically starting, nothing special. I worked in the shipping room. I ran the molding machines. I ran the different operations, making parts. And slowly, I was really a numbers guy, and this is before computers. And as I got more into the office, I would sit down and I had it worked out longhand how long took us to make a chassis and a stylus and a cartridge and the reject rates and stuff. And in 1977, Joe moved to New Jersey. And he kind of took care of things in New York, Brooklyn, from New Jersey. And I think it was 1978, we had an issue with one of our employees. And at that time, we had 75, 80 employees. And it was really something that Joe had to take care of. And I was on the phone, kind of his eyes and ears on site. And I was on the phone. He said, "Know what, John? Take care of it. Take care of the business. Not overall. He kind of put me in charge of the daily operations of the business. Um, I was a 24, 25-year-old kid, but uh, at that point, I was more interested in the business than as I was younger. We went through making cartridges. We couldn't make them fast enough. Um, it wasn't a pleasant situation then, but it's hard to think that we were like 6 months back ordered on phono cartridges, and we were making about 10,000 cartridges a week. But hey, we were happy. People wanted them. We kept at it. In kind of coming to the 80s, early 80s, it was when the compact disc was introduced. And of course, I think we all know, that was going to be the end all, indestructible. But it did eat into the whole phono cartridge analog business. And it was kind of a slow demise for us during the 80s. And somewhere around mid 80s, conversations with Joe about, what can we do? And slowly we started working on headphones. And even back then, we never envisioned, what it is today with players, the iPod. But we did envision that eventually all students would have a laptop in school and they'd need a headphone. So we worked on developing headphones, and the first headphones we developed were the Signature line of headphones. Those, I think we started shipping in 1989. Every Signature headphone I built personally. We kind of got that off the ground. And in 1990, because it was Joseph Grado Signature products, and they were his headphones. 1990, we decided it was time that I would purchase the Grado Labs company from my uncle. So that happened. Off the success of the Signature headphones, I kind of went to work, and actually John Chappis and I worked very well together. John was a talented machinist. And we started developing the Prestige series of headphones for Grado Labs. The original headphones models were the SR100, SR200, SR300. And of course, me personally, I envision, we're going to get these headphones going and we're going to take over the world. I also, while we were selling the headphones, I kind of got reacquainted and with Sid Smith and Dick Sequeira. Dick Sequeira, well known, but also from the Marantz era. And Dick and Sid were always considered, I guess everybody has them, like my fake uncles. So I had taken over control of Grado Labs as owner, and the adrenaline was pumping. And I envisioned, you know what, let's build speakers, let's build electronics, let's build the headphones. We'll still continue the phono cartridges as long as they last. And at that time, nobody envisioned in 2025 that phono cartridges would still be a part of the business. So we went to work and we were developing products, speakers, and nothing comes quick. And we worked on them. And I also kind of revamped the headphone line. In 94, 93, we introduced the SR80 headphone, which was a less expensive headphone. And we updated the 100, 200, and 300 to the 125, 225, 325. Again, the headphone business, I thought it would be a lot more exciting. Not exciting, a lot. We'd be selling a lot more than we were. But I understood that technically, even though we were a new company, it was a new product for us. And it would take a while for us to get in. 1994, late 1994, we developed our SR60 headphone. It kind of came out late in 1994. We went to CES. It was my first CES ever. We went to CES in January 1995. And, we brought our line of headphones, and the signature headphones. And everybody would come in. And of course, they want to listen to the signature headphones. And I'd say, listen, you can listen to the signature headphones, no problem. First, you have to listen to this SR60. So, if you twist arms or whatever, they put the SR60 on, and you could see kind of like in their eyeballs, wondering, hey, what the hell is this? They take it off, they go, hey, yeah, that's a nice, what a $200 headphone. And then I would tell them, no, it isn't a $200 headphone. That's a $69 headphone. And the drawers dropped. And then we let them listen to all the headphones. They wanted to listen to the signatures, no problem. But we came back from CES, and Stereophile had just done a big review on the SR60. And we came back. Headphone sales took off like a rocket. And I probably had to make one of the biggest decisions of my life to that point in business. And I decided, forget speakers, forget electronics, headphones, 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 headphones. And probably one of the things that helped, you might see the speakers behind us. This was the final version what we came up with. And of course, headphones were easy to walk around with and to build, building speakers and lugging cabinets and stuff around. But the headphones kept us busier. Not that, we wanted to be as busy as possible, but they kept us busy, busy, busy. And, so we stuck to the headphones. As time went on, we came out with our first wooden headphone, an RS1. We came out with another lower valued under the RS1 wooden headphone, an RS2. And, we just kept developing headphones going up the line. We had a GS1000, a GS2000, a PS1000, PS2000, a GS3000, and we just continued. Now, it's all exciting, but we develop a headphone, and we develop a headphone, and I like to call our designs, each headphone has its own recipe. And we develop a headphone, and we'd let it live its life. We wouldn't change models, every year we wouldn't come up with an upgraded model just to come up with an upgraded model. When we upgraded models, it was because we felt we had something worthwhile to integrate into that model. Now, we're doing headphones roughly 35 years. We've had 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going into our 5th series of headphones. So things have only been upgraded a few times. So we get to work, design, come out with the new line. And, I always say, I have to thank whoever puts the ideas in my head. I don't know where they come from, but whoever puts the ideas to work on a new series. But in between, we were fortunate enough to do some special partnerships with different companies. Now, the first company we did, who came to us, and I don't know how well you can see this because this was an early one, but Dolce and Gabbana came. We made headphones for them. And these partnerships, again, made life a little interesting and intriguing, okay, because we'd have to do things to make their things work. The next biggest one we did, this is a headphone we made for Bushmills, made out of wood. Bushmill sent us the barrels. We took the wood from the barrels, and we had to incorporate it. And they kind of wanted, let me see. Now, people who know us know we do open back headphones. They wanted this, I'll call it a closed rear. We had to find another way to port the headphone, but it was an interesting deal working with them. We enjoyed it, and it was kind of a distraction, because the series we had worked on was living its life. We've done other things, and we've done a lot of them. I'm just showing you some that are a little interesting. And this kind of took me back to my days as a child. But again, this morning, I had some of these. And funny, my wife has them on the counter, kind of enticing me. I went and I got them. I only took 3. So my mother must have instilled something in me. But we made these headphones we made for Oreo. Again, another fun project. Not that long ago, I'm sure all of you guys are familiar with this from playing games. This is a headphone we made for Pokémon. Again, each one has its, the wood we use, the configuration, the recipe we have to come up with. And again, it's kind of like a chef. After so many years, you kind of know what kind of works, but like if you're a cook, you have to put in a little more salt, a little more pepper, a little oregano, Here was another interesting one that we got. I don't know if you can see this. This is something we did for Harley-Davidson. They sent us pistons from their motorcycle, and we made headphones out of it. And the original one, I'm told it sits in the Harley-Davidson museum. We also we did a lot of stuff for a company, A24. They make movies, and we made a lot of headphones for them. But they're stars. This is one, again, I don't know if you can see. This is for Jonah Hill, for a movie he made with them called Mid-90s. And again, all this stuff kept life interesting. We've made headphones for Billy Joel, John Mayer, Pink, Ariana Grande. Not, I honestly, I forget all the projects we've done. We've done them for a couple other alcohol companies, and we've done a headphone for Microsoft, but a number of them. And it keeps, again, that keeps our life interesting. Oh, So that keeps our life interesting. Um, Hold on, let me just do. Oh, I don't know if you can see in the background there. There's the Beatles, the collection. So both my boys work with me, and when Jonathan graduated college, my oldest son, he wanted to go to California and work. He wanted to live in California. So I had gotten him a job at Sonos, and he went out there, he was working. And one day, uh, his boss, I don't know what level at Sonos this guy was, called him into the office and introduced him to a gentleman, Giles Martin. And, talking, and Giles mentioned that he had just finished recording uh, Paul McCartney's last album. And I think this was like 2014. And he said he likes our headphones and everything. Unfortunately, he had an RS1 and it broke, so he couldn't use it. So after all the pleasantries, Jonathan went back to his desk and immediately he calls me, tells me the story. And I told him, I said, know what? Find out where we need to send it and we'll send the RS1 out to him right away. We got it out to him. He got back to us later, a few months later, and he said that he had gone into the studio and re-recorded all the vocals for Paul's album. So later in that year, Giles was visiting. I mean, this was all out in California. Miles was going to be visiting here in New York, and he wanted to come by and say hello. So he came. We were happy to see him. And actually, by this time, before Giles came, sorry if I'm getting my timeline mixed up, Sonos had come to Jonathan and they wanted him to handle the AR for the United States. So Jonathan came back and wanted to know, we talked about what he should do, what he wanted to do. And if he took the job though, because while he was out there working this time, he was so they had offered him the AR job. He came back. We talked about it. He decided that he would be working with Grado Labs, and he severed ties with Sonos on a very pleasant thing. He's still friends with all the people he worked with. Then Giles was in New York. He wanted to come by and visit, say hello. So he came to visit with Jonathan and I, and he brought the collection of Beatle records, and it's signed to John. Best of luck to John from George Martin. That's one of my prized possessions. Anybody who's a Beatle enthusiast knows who George Martin is, and actually that makes a throwback to another story. My best friend of 67 years, we were in third grade. No, we were in fifth grade. 1964. We were in fifth grade when the Beatles came. They came in February. In March, Mark and I had what I believe to be the first cover Beatle band in the United States. And we were little 12-year-old kids, and we would put on concerts. We played at school in the auditorium and in the class, and actually at my house we put on a concert, and we signed autographs, and we collected a nickel for each autograph. We were really gung-ho people. And of course, the nice thing is that my friend Mark today has been Billy Joel's saxophone player since 1982. He's Ringo's musical director. He played with John Lennon. He played with Paul. And back in the 70s, early 70s, he was playing with John Lennon. They were practicing up on 23rd Street here in Manhattan. And I would go and hang out. So again, that was, to get this from George, it was like a dream come true. So, so that was that story. Here we are today. We kind of lived through COVID. COVID hit. We actually closed down for 3 months. I kept everybody on the payroll. We have a terrific crew. The crew is the most important thing to me and very important to the company. And we came back under strict regulations, and we were very careful. And really, during COVID, we were busier than we had been busy than we had in a long time. And of course, people were stuck in their house and they're buying headphones. And COVID ended. We went back to normal working conditions. And right now we're in the middle of really introducing a new line of headphones. The first one was our HP 100 SE. That was a special thing in honor of my uncle, Joe. We introduced this in November of 24. In 2024, Joe would have been 100. So we figured this was a nice way to send off this new series in honor of him. And we've been introducing a headphone as we go along in the signature series. And but I also have, getting back to phono cartridges. Again, I don't know. This is one of the monaural cartridges we made in the 50s. I have, let's see, what else do I have here? And all this stuff gets packed away. So I knew this was happening. So I had to go through all the drawers and stuff to find cartridges. Oh, that's that one. This is one of the moving coils. This was a Mark. We had a bunch. This was a Mark 1 moving coil cartridge from the early 60s. This was an F1 from the original F series that lasted probably close to 15 years. Now, again, it would always get upgraded in a little different connotation and stuff. One of the questions I might get asked, oh, the special headphones. We do limited editions. And the first Grado limited, not a partnership we did with somebody, was a GH1, Grado Heritage 1. Now, I don't think the storm of from 2012, it was called Sandy. I don't think that affected you guys out on the West Coast. But we got hit pretty hard here. A few blocks, 2 or 3 blocks from us we're in the Sunset Park area of Brooklyn, and there is a Sunset Park. So Sandy hit, and it was a real mess. And we noticed there were a lot of trees knocked down in the park, Sunset Park. So we figured, know what? That could be a nice little thing. So we got some trees. We sent it to our wood maker, and this GH1, Grado Heritage 1, was made out of trees that were knocked down in Sandy and that were knocked down in, our local park. And again, that's like to me, I love the story. I just love the story. Now, I don't know if one of the I don't want to get ahead of what questions might be asked, but in listening, and this is my listening room, the equipment here, I don't claim to be the world's greatest equipment. It's not bad. It's not bad, but it's my reference. In behind this room, we have a storage room, and I have a lot of equipment the manufacturers send. I don't go out requesting any equipment. But if I change one piece of equipment, I lose my reference point. And what I have here, I enjoy. I enjoy music. To me, music is the most important thing, more important than the equipment. And I don't mean to diminish the equipment, but I'm happy if it's listening off my car radio. An analogy I like to use, people will ask, are you an audiophile? And nothing the matter with being an audiophile. But the analogy I like to use is to auto racing. In auto racing, I consider the driver the audiophile. But then there's the mechanic that gives the audiophile the tools to do their job. So I'm not an audiophile, but I consider myself the mechanic that gives the audiophiles the tools to do what they want to do. And, I'll get calls and, people will say, oh, can you recommend something? And I try to tell them, I don't like to push, because we have some items that are rather expensive, but I like to think that we have things that are, economical. And I tell people, we don't make products to push high price items on people. We like to make things, we might entice you, entice you to buy them, but that's not our purpose. And if somebody, when I get the calls, can I recommend something? I tell them, decide on a budget, plug it into into our line, and you'll be getting the most for your money from us. So in the listening room, in developing something, we'll listen to a lot of things. And I'm not the only person. There's a team. The team is involved. I might be leading a project on something. Somebody else might be leading a project on something else. But when I'm listening and I'm down to the nitty-gritty, I have 3 albums I like to listen to. And it's only clips from these albums that I listen to. And okay, so this is Eric Clapton, Unplugged. And there's a song on there, Signe, if I'm pronouncing it right. I asked a bunch of people, how do you pronounce that? How do you, Signe? And you know what? I get, every time everybody I ask, I get a different pronunciation. When I listen to that, it's just a short clip. It's the applause. I want to listen to the applause, and I want to hear where you can hear the clapping. It isn't one big clap, but I can distinguish between everybody's hands clapping. Another one is Ellington Jazz Party. Here, there's a Montatuba. In school, I was great in math. The other thing, Malatoba, Malatoba. I'm sure somebody out there knows what I'm talking about. There's a xylophone in there, and that's what I'm listening for. I'm listening for the extensions of the high frequencies, how they the decay. The next one, Ella Fitzgerald, Clap Hands. And there I'm listening to A Night in Tunisia. Female voice tells a lot. So again, that's like the final, when I'm listening, my critical, those three songs. And if I listen to 10 or 15 seconds, it's telling me what I want to hear. And, that's that. Some people ask us about measurements and stuff. When we're designing, we're not measuring anything. We're listening. And basically, we put out to market things that we like. Fortunately, there are people out there that like what we like. Measurements will come into once we finish the design work, formulating the recipe, then we will measure just for production purposes to keep things all in alignment. And, we're still here after, going into the 73rd year. We have a lot of things we're looking forward to coming in the next few years and continuing. We're not planning on going anywhere. We're happy what we do. It's just something. I'm 73. I wake up every morning. I look forward to coming to work. And it's a joy. And sometimes I feel when I'm coming to work, it's like I'm coming to work at Grandpa's fruit store. It's nobody here has any, airs about it, or, who we are. It's when we have company. They tell us, oh, you might be famous, whatever. We just enjoy what we do, and we look forward to doing it for years and years and years into the future. So anyway, that's, I guess, somewhat of a history of Grado, my history here, and thanks for listening.